I'm delighted to welcome today AnYes van Rhijn, who is known as the Reinvention Mentor. Welcome, AnYes.
Thank you for having me, Ellen. I'm very, very delighted to be here.
Marvellous. I'm intrigued with your name. Where is it from originally?
So it's a combination, in fact. I am technically French. My first name, although you don't spell it like that, is Agnès in French, not Agnes. But both my parents were Dutch. So in Dutch, it's even worse. It's Agnes. But so my Van Rijn is Dutch. Both my parents were Dutch. I grew up bilingual, bicultural. But I'm now living in London, in the UK.
Right, but you mentioned France as well.
I have lived most of my life in France. I was born in France.
Okay, so proper multicultural, multilingual, etc., etc. How amazing! This is the world we're now living in, isn't it? With so many young people now are growing up, bilingual. By the time they start school, they can speak languages.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. I'm very international. I really enjoy that dimension. And yeah, as you say, kids. I mean, my God, my I have two kids. Well, adults, of course, but my daughter has spent over the span of 6 years when she was studying. She was in the east of France, then she moved to Boston, then she moved to Palo Alto, then she moved to London, then she moved to Shanghai. So when she did her hen party, is that how you call that
Hen
also?
hen
Yeah,
hen party, yeah.
yeah,
Hen.
yeah. It was in the south of France with people from all over the world. The girls
Wow,
were from everywhere.
wow.
Our friends are everywhere. Yeah, that's why I think that as parents, there's no point in trying to follow our kids anymore because 2 years later they will be at the other end of the
Yes.
globe again.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And why not? Why not indeed?
Yeah, yeah, no, they're right. Absolutely.
Whereabouts in London are you?
East London,
Wh-
Myland.
Okay, my first business wasn't far away from there. I'm now currently in the Algarve in Portugal, where I'm speaking to you from. But yeah, Milan, that's interesting. That's one of the up and coming places where in days gone by it was somewhere you avoided.
Oh,
So
it definitely, that's what I heard.
yeah,
Yes, it really was had a very bad reputation,
yes,
but it's very trendy now.
yeah,
Yeah,
amazing, amazing.
yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous. Okay, so let's properly start then. Why do you call yourself the Reinvention Mentor?
I call myself the reinvention mentor because to start with, I'm extremely resilient, but I have reinvented myself multiple times in life. And my last reinvention has been the most epic one, in that I arrived from France 7 years ago in London at 58 with just two suitcases, no income, no savings. I had lost everything by choosing to leave a toxic relationship because I knew that at least by leaving, I had a chance to reconstruct myself. Where if I would stay, I would die, not necessarily literally, but yeah, and I've never regretted it. I've never looked back. It's been an amazing journey, one of full transformation. So much so that I always say that I'm thankful for that relationship because without it, I wouldn't be who I am today. It's also in that time frame that I've changed the spelling of my first name to um, it sounds like Agnès in French. We don't spell it like that in French, but with a capital Y, which is now my only inflexibility in life. The Y has to be capitalized
Yes,
because I say yes to life, and
yes,
it's part of my brand. It's part of my identity. It's really who I've become, and I now help my clients do the same. And I am the walking example that what I'm teaching my clients is working because I've applied to myself what I'm teaching my clients.
that's so interesting and so refreshing. I was interviewed this morning myself and explaining why I choose to call myself a mentor rather than a coach,
Mm.
because although part of what we do is coaching, the fact that we've been there, done it, got the t-shirt, the
Absolutely.
books, the whole bit, um, when you have experienced things, you can fully empathize and understand, but also you've got the ability, the resilience to be able to say, well, actually, yeah, I came through it. You can, I'm nothing special. In my case, that's what I say. I'm sure you are very special. But you can empathise on a same par with the client. So how do you work with clients then? I mean, tell us a bit of the experiences that you've had. So you came out of a toxic relationship. Do you have other times you've reinvented yourself?
Oh, that was before that. I mean, at 18, I left my parents, spent 2.5 years in the north of France. Then I moved to the Netherlands, spent 8 years in the Netherlands, then moved to east of Paris. Then at 30 plus, had my kids from two different fathers, so that's already two different relationships. And at some point I had a nagging feeling there must be more to life, successful corporate career, but I wasn't satisfied, something was missing. And so I ended up deciding, I came across a coaching training and did it almost out of boredom, not so much with the idea that I was going to do something with it. And I fell in love with it. And I do agree with you. I call myself a mentor. I have a triple certification in coaching, but coaching is only one of the tools that I use. So to bounce back on that, I fully agree. I'm definitely a mentor, not a coach. I am a mentor coach because I also use coaching. But I then ended up setting up my business because, of course, at the beginning it was very scary. I didn't dare, perfectionism, not ready, etc., etc. So it took a while. Then I set up my business, became very successful, and then almost burned out because, of course, I reproduced the rat race that I had left. And then rebounded from that, became successful again. And then the economy collapsed. I almost went bankrupt overnight, over a few weeks' time, because I had two major clients and they both canceled. And when I worked with them, it was always a year-long mapped program. So from there I went again and I started over again and became successful again. And so I have a few like that over the whole journey. But as I said, the most transformational one has really been this last one. And to be very honest, I wouldn't mind stopping there and not having to reinvent myself again. But it's been amazing. So how I work with my clients is that, to start with, I always say, with me, you get the best of two worlds, left brain, right brain, if I can simplify it. Left brain, as in the Dutch in me, systems, tools, organization, practical, blah, blah, blah. But I'm also a very firm believer in the law of attraction, neurosciences, quantum physics. I'm very much into spirituality, etc. And I do believe that in order to be successful in life, whatever success means to you, you cannot only be grounded, but you cannot just have your heads in the clouds. I think you need a combination of both, which to me comes back to combining, balancing masculine energy with feminine energy. And therefore, my whole approach is a very holistic approach. So to start with, the women that I work with are the women who are professional, who have that nagging feeling there must be more to life. They are unsatisfied, so they want to step in the driver's seat. But even if they may not know how to go about it, or even what it would look like, they're ready to do something about it. So they're action takers. They're not just the people who complain about everything and just wait for it to happen. So they're action takers. And then the whole idea is that I then help them design and manifest their ideal life, but also the business that will support it. So it could be that it's a woman in her career who wants to leave her job to set up a business, but it could also be that it is a woman who has a business, but because all of it is not working the way she would want it, because it's not her, and whatever other reasons there can be, it may be revamping an existing business. But the whole thing is that I start by looking at where they are at in their life. You're not going to throw the baby away with the bathwater. I mean, there's stuff to keep there. But being conscious of what your start point is then going to help you evaluate where you get in the end. And then it's all about looking at what's important. Who are you? And what is important to you? And where do you want to be? So all of that is the inventory part, the foundation part, if you prefer. So it's the clarity part. And then we look at confidence, mindset, because it's everything that has to do with, I'm afraid to go there, whether I am conscious of it or not, because invariably, when they work with me, they always dream bigger than they thought they would. And that's scary. Who am I to think that, type of. So we work on all those limiting beliefs. And then we look at the business, as I said, either a creation or a revamp, but that is aligned with who you are, what's important to you. One of my areas of expertise is that I'm a personal branding strategist. So it's all about having that personal brand. But then it doesn't stop there, because how do you ensure that all of that is sustainable, that it will last? And that is everything to do with looking at your self-care, your work-life balance, but then also personal effectiveness, time and priority management. So now I'm coming back to the Dutch in me, the systems, the tools, the automation, the delegation. With that, they have the foundation for a life that is going to be what they have chosen, and it can last. If they then want to grow it, I don't know, let's grow it to 6-figure, 7-figure, whatever, I'm not interested. That's not what I do. I will send them to someone else. For me, it's about helping women become emotionally and financially free so that they always have the power of choice. And in doing so, they become role models for more women to do the same, because I do believe that it is women that will make this world a better place. So that's what drives me. That's my why. That's my, how do you call it in English? North Star, is that? Yes, North Star. Yeah. And that's what I do with my clients. So it is transformational. It really is transformational. Therefore, you must be willing to do the work. You must be willing to invest the time, the energy, and the money to get that transformation. I believe in what I call a new paradigm woman. So a woman who is not okay anymore with just following what patriarchy has imposed on us, how we should behave, who we should be, etc. They know that they are destined for more. They know that they have that power. And what is interesting with the woman that I'm talking about is she's heart-centered. She wants to make a difference in the world at whatever level, which means that money is power and money is freedom. So the difference, I believe, between, and it's a generalization, of course, between a man who has the power and the freedom and a woman who has the power and the freedom is that she won't do the same thing with her wealth. She's going to, of course, take care of her own needs and have a good life and etc. And that is something that women need to learn to also be okay with. It's totally okay to make money. It's not selfish. It's not, whatever other beliefs you can have around it. But they will also do good for others. And that is, I think, where, again, as a generalization, that's where there is a major difference between men and women, because we are all about caring. We are all about collaboration. So these are women who are not afraid of competition, because they know that there is no such a thing as competition. There's room for everyone. It's women who, they may have to learn it, but will definitely move away from the scarcity mindset. They are in an abundance mindset. What I always explain is that when I arrived in London with my 2 suitcases, all I had was 8 weeks of house sitting. Never, ever have I felt poor. I felt rich. I felt abundant. And that's another interesting thing. You cannot want abundance if you're not in a place of abundance, because the way the law of attraction works, if you focus on what you don't have, you will get more of that. If you focus on what you have already, because we all are abundant in a way or another, if we know where to look. And that makes a huge difference. And it's so much easier to go through life. It doesn't mean that I don't have bumps in the road. I have them also. I'm a normal human being. But I know how to handle fear as a fuel instead of letting it paralyze me. And the key with fear is not to stay with it, because we will have it until our last breath, all of us, whether we are conscious of it or not.
Interesting. I love your description. I've made a note here. New paradigm woman. I love that.
Yeah, and I'm trademarking it.
Yeah, very good. I love that. And also the competition versus collaboration. The new C word to me is collaboration, and there's Absolutely. So many more collaborations, and women are far more adept at collaborating with less of an ego. Again, generalizing. And I found that when I've run over the years, I've run many groups and networking groups and support groups and so on, and I found that the energy between women or versus the energy with a mixed group is completely different. So whilst we've got this kind of new it's almost like a new era where we're having men now say it's okay to cry. More men are stepping forward and appearing to be less ego and more human, more heart-led. I'm not quite sure the balance is right, because often when I see things posted, it's like too much the other way, you know. So gone from blokey blokes to soft.
I think that's the pendulum effect. So to start with, I'm absolutely not, for women against men.
No,
I am for we need both.
Anybody.
And to come back to what you were saying about what men need, I think we both need a balance between feminine and masculine energy. Women need more masculine energy. Men need more feminine energy. It's finding that right balance. But the pendulum effect, when you are launching a pendulum, it will go from one extreme to the other before it stabilizes.
Yes.
So it takes time. It takes time. Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing that swing, aren't we? What did you do when you were in corporate, AnYes?
I have been working in international firms, essentially in IT and in services, professional services. And I was the director of administration for Europe of one of the big three executive search firms in the world, and thereafter the the director of administration for France for a very specific entity of Capgemini, which is also a worldwide company. So
very good. So you've seen and can experience. You've experienced and you can see how the modern woman of today has got kind of caught up in the race. Really, it's like corporate is a rat race. It's completely led by other people, isn't it?
It is, and I think that it's one of the reasons why originally when I moved to I started as an executive coach in France internationally, and for 8 years I did that, and so I was in the corporate world, became an executive coach. So I left the corporate world through the door and I came back in through the window, but it didn't feel right, because it's really a world that I don't like, and I don't think that the future is in that. I think that I was going to say women, in fact it applies to men as well. We should take our own responsibility, and so not wait for a system to solve everything for us. And I think that having your own business is a way to do that. And then, of course, it's very much depending on how your ego is playing with you into what it thinks that you should have. Before arriving in London with my 2 suitcases, I had it all. I mean, the relationship and the house and, all the external signs were there. And ultimately, you know, when you have to come with 2 suitcases, it means you have to get rid of a few things slightly. And I realized that because of the personal development work I did on myself, I hadn't that many voids to fill in me anymore. So I did not have the need to have stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff. So I have now, well, you can see more or less my background. On a scale from hoarder to minimalist, I'm not a minimalist, but I'm definitely closer to minimalist than hoarder because I don't need stuff. So to me, I don't, if we come back to the notion of financial, of wealth, it's taken me years to come to peace with that, with the fact that it's okay to be wanting money, because originally, of course, when we are serving, we have this inner battle about, oh, but it's not okay to ask for money, you should be helping, blah, blah, blah. And ultimately, what I've come to realize is that if you don't have enough money for your food or whatever, how can you serve others fully? You can't. But if you have money, coming back to what I was saying earlier, and you have an excess of it, you can use that for good. So that's also not a good thing. But what I have come to realize, again, because of the internal work that I have done, and which is always work in progress, of course, is that I don't need stuff, but so I don't need a Louis Vuitton bag. But if I fall in love with a Louis Vuitton bag, I would want to have the freedom to say, just buy it, you know, which is a completely different concept than buying stuff for stuff or for the status. I only buy stuff when I like it, when I fall in love with it, which is why I prefer to buy one beautiful item that might then be very expensive rather than tons of little things that will end up in the bin or not being used or whatever. I hope that it makes sense what I'm saying. But yeah, I think it's a complete different mindset. It's different, a complete different set of values also.
Yeah, I definitely identify. We're actually the same age, and I've done exactly the same thing. I've come to Portugal with a few small items in my car, and here I am, happy as Larry, not owning anything. I have the financial freedom, I have the independence, I have the health, and you know, health is my wealth.
Oh, and I say the same. I mean, so to give you another example, when I started making money, my priority was to buy organic food. That was my luxury because I know that food is my health, is my medicine. And so for me, I have not been sick for 4 or 5 years. I've not seen a doctor for 4 or 5 years, not even had a cold. Because if you take good care of your body, it's a perfectly oiled machine. And it absolutely knows how to heal itself.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So what advice would you give for a woman who is feeling that they're not, you know, they're not fitting in, maybe their values aren't right compared to the corporation that they might be in, or maybe they're thinking about running a business but they don't know where to start? What general advice would you give?
There are several, in fact. I've never managed to find just one, never. The very first thing that I always say is don't let anyone tell you your dream is impossible. But that is, of course, assuming you know you have a dream. The other thing, because that is stopping a lot of women, is because the woman that I work with will be, I used to say 40 plus. Actually, it's even 35 plus, because it's what we used to call the midlife crisis. But women are having that younger and younger, are reconsidering their choices. For me, by the way, reinventing yourself doesn't mean that you've had to have a drastic situation like mine. Not at all. It means choosing to step in the driver's seat of your life. It's choosing to be the designer of your life. It's all about conscious choices. But coming back to that, a lot of people, women in particular, will be afraid of, oh, I can't. I say, and I'm a good example of it, it's never, ever too late to reinvent yourself. And to that extent, I'm even adding nor too early. Then it's all about what are you choosing? What are your priorities in life? I have always invested in myself. My personal growth is priority. Because you can have all the skills in the world. If your mindset isn't there, it won't work. When I arrived in London, the intention was to develop in London, in the UK, let's put it this way, or based from the UK, because I work internationally, my mentoring business for women entrepreneurs. But 3 months later, I had the opportunity to buy the franchise of a female business network here in the UK. And I didn't have £5. We're talking about 10,000s of pounds. And I then asked myself, I wanted it. I'm a networker. I really wanted it. And I then asked myself, simply enough, what do I need for myself? Money doesn't define my happiness. I feel abundant, so all I need is money for food and money for a roof. In this case, a bedroom. I've lived 5 years in a small bedroom where I come from a very huge house in France where I was living on my own. So that was a choice that I made. I lived in a bedroom. So I thought, that's all I need, actually. So this is a membership organization. Members are paying. So if I know what the costs are, etc. So the lady gave me that information. And I thought of two things. One is a thing that my father always said to me in Dutch. He always said, you already have the no, you don't have the network. You could have the yes. In other words, if you don't try, you don't know. But if they say no, it's not a rejection. It's not me being rejected. It's just the offer being rejected. And so the other thing that I thought of is the law of polarity. Law of polarity says that for one thing to exist in the universe, its opposite must exist. You cannot know what white is if you don't know what black is, etc., etc. In other words, if there is a problem, there is a solution. But to find a solution, you need to think out of the box, because in my box, it was saying, what a shame, I would love to, but I can't, which is what most people would have thought. And I just made an offer to pay back over 4 years, and she accepted. 2 weeks later, I had the network, which of course shifted my priorities from my mentoring business to growing the network, because now it was no longer a matter of, do I have money for food, do I have money for rent, but also do I have money to pay back the franchise. But all of that is mindset, and all of that is about knowing how to handle fear, but having a very strong sense of priorities also, knowing what's really important to you. And that female business network, is completely aligned with my mission as the mentor. It's all about empowering women. So as a personal branding strategist, which is one of my areas of expertise, as I said, for me, it's important that all of that is coherent, and it is.
Absolutely.
It makes sense.
And is that still going, the network?
Yeah. It's the Athena network in London.
The Athena. Okay, yes, I know. Yes.
Well, in the UK, so I run the Central London region.
Okay.
And so that's now been, in January will be 7 years.
Oh wow. Okay, I know some of your members. Right. Okay. Wonderful. Marvelous. So, how do people get hold of you, AnYes?
Well, I am the only AnYes van Rhijn in the world with that spelling. So you can find me on any of the platform, and I'm also the Reinvention mentor that also has been trademarked. So on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and then you have my website that is www.thereinventionmentor.biz. And there you can find everything about my services. And so people can work with me one-to-one. And that goes from a 90-minute power session to a VIP day to 3 months, 6 months, 9 months mentoring, which then leads to the true transformation. And I also run a 5-week online course that helps women go through, at a high level, go through the same framework that I use to design and manifest the life they desire, and then identify how their business can actually support that. And I run that multiple times in a year. The next one will be in October. But yeah, there's always information about that on my website as well.
Brilliant. So that's just to reiterate for those on podcasts, they won't be seeing the video here. The Reinvention.
There is a freeze. I don't know if it's your end or mine.
Yeah, it's my end. So it's the reinventionmentor.biz.
Sorry, there is a freeze. I don't know if it's my end or yours.
I think we're back now. So I was just reiterating your website, the reinventionmentor.biz.
The reinventionmentor.biz. Yes, I think that I heard you say that.
Yeah, marvellous. Okay, thank you very much, AnYes, for your time today. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Thanks so much for having me. Bye.